Hello, awesome Moss flutists. I hope everybody's doing well, staying safe and happy and healthy. I thought I'd do a tutorial on something super fun, and that is scales. So, whether you know it or not, you've been playing scales longer than you've been doing anything else on the flute. Anybody remember this favorite? That's the exciting Mary Had a Little Lamb, and we all did it as beginners in lots and lots of different keys. But it's not just Mary Had a Little Lamb, but it's a series of scales. And it's not that your band directors wanted to hear Mary Had a Little Lamb because it's their second favorite piece ever. It's because it's scales, and it helps you to learn your scales. It helps you to learn your fingerings. It helps you to learn how to phrase. And in spite of the fact that they are mini scales, it's a fairly easy pattern to learn. And like I said, we can do them in lots and lots of different keys. So as you can see in front of you in this particular frame, this is the construction of scales. This comes from the Wagner Flute Foundation book, and it talks about the composition or the framework of major scales. So on this page are 4 different types of scales: C major, F major, G major, and B flat major. All of which you know, you've worked on them, some more than others if you're just a little bit older. So if I zoom in just a little bit, and we take the C major scale that's at the top, the word tone in this particular case is referring to a whole step. The word semitone is referring to a half step. And if you notice, we're dealing with a whole step, whole step. I'll put this more in a bracket. That's a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and half step. And it's going to be exactly the same, just a mirrored image backwards for the descending. If we go down to the F major scale, we're going to find the same exact pattern. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, and then a half step between the 7th and the 8th notes within an octave. This is exactly the same no matter what note you start on, no matter what the key signature is in all major scales. So the next page, the next frame, is a combination of scales and arpeggiated patterns. And if you notice at the very top, you're dealing with the F major scale in what we call 2 octaves. 2 octaves. I think perhaps at Moss we call it level 2. Level 1 would be 1 octave, and then level 2 would be 2 octaves. So basically it's a level 2 F major scale, which you've all done many times. Number 2 is an arpeggiated pattern. Arpeggios are kind of the opposite of scales. Scales are working in stepwise pattern, and arpeggios are working in skips, as you can tell. Number 3 is a variation of F major scale in somewhat full octave, octave and a half, and some what we call in our world fragmentation. Lots and lots of things that you can do. Again, this comes from the Wagner book. So the composer of this particular book, and also the presenter, is just giving you ideas of all of the different ways that you can utilize scale patterns and also arpeggiated patterns. And if we scroll down to the bottom, again, you'll see more. It just gets a little bit more complex as we get down to the bottom of the page. And just to even out, because I think it's really important to do sharps as well as flats, so that we're not just doing flats, the G major scale from the Wagner book. Again, G major scale, 2 octaves in whole notes to work on your tone and your intonation, and of course the high register notes, the G major arpeggiated pattern, number 2, and then some theme and variations going on 3 through number 6. So I think on this page, I think I'm going to present number 4. This is an arpeggiated composition, not necessarily different from the scale patterns that are presented, but utilizing bigger intervals rather than scale patterns. Lots of different ways that you can do these exercises. Notice how there's no tempo markings on these. Of course, we have time signatures and dynamics, but we don't have tempo markings, and there's a reason for that. Wagner, in his presentation of these scales and arpeggios, wants you to practice them slowly and then speed up as you go. I like utilizing these particular exercises in order to shape phrases, perhaps practice at different speeds in order to create different sorts of phrasing. If you play it a little bit faster, the breath marks will perhaps be just a little bit later. If they're a little bit slower, the breath marks will come a little bit sooner as well. Number 6, for more advanced players, could be a great exercise for double tonguing. And number 5 is definitely a great exercise for a little bit more virtuoso playing. We see this sort of texture in a lot of virtuosic music by perhaps Doppler or Born, those particular composers. Any of the French composers, we're going to see a lot of these sort of lush scale patterns. So happy scale learning. So in conclusion, what I would like to do is I would like to pose a challenge. I have passed along 2 PDF files to Miss Lewis and to the other band directors. One is from a book called Silly Songs, and that is for the beginners. And I've also passed along these particular pages, the page with F major and also the page with G major from the Wagner book for more advanced 7th and 8th graders. And I would like to pose a challenge for anyone who would like to take me up on the challenge. The beginners, I'd like you to record as many of the Silly Song pieces as you can, and by this Sunday, I would like you to submit recordings to me, and I will listen to them, and I'm listening for quality most definitely. I'm not really listening to speed, but I am listening for quality of playing, and there will be prizes. So I'd love to have as many beginners, regardless of if you study with me or not. Anybody can challenge. For 7th and 8th graders, I'd like you to take a look at these 2 pages from the Wagner book. Again, I passed them along to Miss Lewis and to the other band directors to distribute to you. And anyone who would like to take the challenge, play as much from these 2 pages as possible, record them, and submit them to me, and I will listen to them for quality. Everything counts: notes, rhythms, articulations, dynamics, and of course phrasing, which includes breath marks. So you can just submit those to me. So after you've done the recordings and you're ready to submit, here's my information. You can send it by email to my email address, or you can text your files to me. You can do it in an audio or a video. Either one is fine. If you would make sure that if you don't study with me, that you please identify the file with your name, and also with, I can tell which one you're doing from the silly songs for any of the beginners, but 7th and 8th graders, if you could just let me know which number, I'll be able to tell the key signature, but which number you're doing in the Wagner book. So keep it totally simple. We're just doing this for fun, but I think it's always great to have a challenge, a personal challenge. So happy scales!